Let's bring in attorney Brian Claypool. Brian, want to get your expertise on this because a lot of times we'll get these headlines or these trials start and you kind of roll your eyes. The DOJ is always going after big tech for something. But this isn't search. They're going after them for advertising. Does the DOJ have a strong case here?
Hey, Jackie, great to be with you. This case is going to be harder for the DOJ to prove than the case against Google for their search engine. Why? Because there's an exemption to antitrust liability if it's based on patents, right? Technology. And you heard technology mentioned a couple of times. So if I'm representing Google in this case, I'm going to be arguing, look, we have a superior technology, the Google Ad Manager, that beats everybody else, and that a superior business acumen shouldn't be penalized. And in fact, that is exempt from antitrust liability. And they should be arguing, like you had up there on the quote, that there's three major titans that, look, we're not doing anything nefarious, that what happened to the free market enterprise, and we've put a lot of money into coming up with a very solid Google Ad Manager, and we should not be penalized for that. So I think Google has more traction on this case than the other one.
It's the customers like it defense, which is maybe a pretty good defense. I got to ask you about this. Elizabeth Warren is really happy that the DOJ seems interested in investigating NVIDIA for maybe being a monopolist too. But it seems today like they just want to investigate anybody who happens to be doing great business. Is NVIDIA a monopolist right now, Brian?
Yeah, I mean, Brian, absolutely. I mean, they're absolutely not. But what I'm seeing is a really, really troubling trend, which is let's penalize innovation. Isn't that what we're seeing here? What happened to our free market enterprise? These companies just didn't go in their garage and in a couple of weeks come up with this technology like NVIDIA. Big tech relies on these chips that NVIDIA makes to help them gather artificial intelligence. That's not something that you and I can do overnight. So again, we have the government interfering with business, trying to quash businesses that have come up with great technology. And here, Brian, you're going to have a similar defense that NVIDIA should use if they're prosecuted, which is, look, this is technologically based, and that's an exemption to antitrust laws. And one other quick point. You can't just prove a monopoly in an antitrust case. You've got to prove that the defendant, Google or NVIDIA, willfully manipulated the sector that they're in. And where's there going to be evidence of willful? There's no evidence of people getting, hush money under the table or referral fees for advertising. So I think, look, I really hope this doesn't go forward, but I think NVIDIA is going to win that case.
Speaking of just the regulatory environment, we're hearing from some of the big Harris donors that they're urging her to get rid of FTC Chair Lina Khan, even the SEC Chair Gary Gensler. Do you buy that? And what change would you see then in this regulatory environment?
Yeah, look, the common thread we're seeing in all three of these topics we're talking about is what? Government interference. Right. Government putting their hands in our country and trying to manipulate us, people across this country. I think people should be upset with these three subject matters. And I think what you're going to see with Kamala Harris is she should get out in front of this. If she has the guts to really put this story to bed, because the optics are just horrific. It looks like a pay to play setup, doesn't it? So why doesn't she come out and say, look, you can make a donation to my campaign, but you're not gonna cop any favors from me to fire people based on money you give me. I mean, this is atrocious. She needs to nip this in the bud. And if she doesn't, people should look at that story when they decide on who they're voting for on November 4.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say maybe she's not nipping it in the bud because that's the way it is. But we shall see. Brian, great to have you. Thank you.
You bet. Thanks for having me.